It all started several weeks ago. I got a call to go out of town and do some tech work at an old hangar at Tuscaloosa Airport. I'd be running cables, setting up Wi-Fi, even a website, just regular old tech work. Uh, I ran a small tech services company, so this was just a normal day. A retired airline pilot by the name of Tideman had remodeled an old T hangar and was hoping to start an air taxi service. So I'll just show you the place. It's easier than to try to describe it. A few months ago, it looked like this. But after Tideman got through with doing the structural work, it changed to look like that. He moved the old office area that had been out by the road around to the other side. And that office was where I was working when it happened. Everything was pretty calm. I had just gotten back from getting some food. It was pretty late at night, close to midnight. And then boom, it was a horrendous thunder and roar, bright blue flashes of light. The power went out. The UPSs kept the PCs up, but they both lost internet access. Um, I heard a generator kick in, and the overhead lights came back on, and I didn't know what was going on. But let me tell you a couple of things about this Tideman guy. He was some sort of prepper or something. He had a really big, expensive generator inside the building set up to kick on when the power went out. It worked. Uh, the hangar is laid out like this. The green lines that you could see there, those are the big doors on the sides now. And he owns 5 airplanes. They're stuck in there. Uh, the exterior of the building, like I said, as I showed you, looks like this here with some labels on it. Got a Cessna 208 and a TBM parked facing out this side, the office up front, and a little apartment on that side. And this is the way off to the runway and towers for Tuscaloosa Airport. The other side of the building, uh, 2 Cessnas and a Baron sticking out, or pointed out this side. The plan was to lay new concrete leading up to these side doors, but that never got done. But he had all the open areas inside the building filled with all kinds of survival gear, food, water, MRE type stuff, portable generators, just all kinds of stuff. And I thought it was pretty weird, but I was being paid to hook up his internet, so not to be a psychologist. So I was just doing my job. But that day, he left early. He said he had an urgent meeting up in Birmingham, which is about an hour away. And he got in his Cadillac Escalade and drove off. And that was the last I saw of him. So that night I was working alone at midnight when the flashes happened. Uh, when the noise finally subsided, I peeked out a window and everything was dark. I stepped outside and it was almost completely silent. No cars, no noise other than the nature sounds of a typical southern night. But no headlights, no street lights, no lights at all, except the ones in the hangar, thanks to the generator that had kicked on. Now that was 3 weeks ago. Uh, I haven't heard from Tideman since. It seems like the flashes affected a pretty wide area, maybe even the whole world. I don't know. It's hard to get any news because most of the electronics died that night, with a few rare exceptions. Um, but that night, I got in my Kia to drive home, and it wouldn't hit a lick. The battery was completely dead, no power at all. I got my phone, tried to call a friend in town, but had no cell service. So I grabbed a flashlight out of the hangar. It worked, and I walked a couple of blocks to a convenience store. It was dark and deserted. The doors were open, but nobody was home. Also, the place looked nothing at all like I remembered it from 3 hours earlier. So I walked around the neighborhood for an hour or so, and I didn't see anyone. Everything was like strangely familiar, but also different from earlier that day. Places that I had known for years now looked different to me. Um, Finally, I saw someone else with a flashlight, and he seemed to be doing the same thing, wandering aimlessly in the night. I guess we were now looking for survivors of whatever had happened. His name was Fred Eggleston. He was a taxidermist who had been inside his large metal freezer at the moment of the flashes, and he survived. I would eventually learn that some metal enclosures had given various degrees of protection, and it had something to do with grounding or the frequencies of magnetic fields in the structure. I don't really understand it, but it seems to be true. I know that Tideman had wired this hangar up like a Van de Graaff generator. It had grid lines running everywhere, and it obviously worked. Everything inside that hangar still seemed to be perfectly fine, undamaged. So I wondered, how did he know? Uh, what did he know? And why did he leave? Maybe he didn't know when it was going to happen. He just expected that something to happen. But he went, and the power never came back on. The entire town is still very dark at night, with the exception of a few campfires here or there. Uh, I have come to meet several people, and they're all just in shock, trying to survive. Uh, and I had seen enough post-apocalyptic movies to expect the zombies any day, but they haven't seemed to show up, thankfully. Uh, there have been a few hazards, but so far they're all very human. But by and large, the people are just gone. Uh, and I'm getting more and more paranoid. I used to carry a gun for work sometimes, but I always thought they were heavy and bulky and troublesome. So I'd usually carry a plastic pistol, as we called them, like a Kel-Tec, or at most a snub-nosed 38 special. But this Tideman, he left a very well-stocked gun cabinet, so now most days I'm carrying around a 1911 Colt and usually an M4 carbine on my daily walks, maybe even some RTS body armor. And it looks to me like there's maybe only a few hundred people left in the entire town of Tuscaloosa. There used to be over 100,000. But the food wars from the movies never came because even though the grocery stores are getting a little bit stinky, there's plenty of non-perishable food for all of us who are left to live on for years. And that Fred Eggleston taxidermy guy, he's also equipped to hunt and process game meat. So that was fortunate. I traded him a couple of portable generators for a supply of fresh venison. I really want to keep that friendship solid because that's a good thing to have going on. So the town is now turned into something like a bunch of greenhorns learning to get by in the Old West with a few twists. But life goes on. So anyway, the point is this. I've always wanted to be a pilot. I took a few lessons in a Cessna 172 several years ago and managed to land without breaking anything, but that's about as far as it ever got. I ran out of money before I ever soloed. Uh, I had studied aviation and airplanes my whole life, but I never got my license. And now I seem to be the owner of a small fleet of 5 airplanes. They all seem to work. I've opened up the hangar doors and pulled out the manuals and did test runs on all of them. The engines, the instruments all seem to work fine. Have several handheld comm and nav and GPS and ELT gizmos that were inside the building, and they all seem to power up okay, but there's no GPS signal. So anything that uses GPS seems to be dead. I guess the satellites are just dead or gone down or something. When you fire up a radio and call, uh, nobody answers. Uh, I listen every day to the local tower frequency, 126.3, and also I leave something on guard frequency, 121.5, in case of an emergency all the time, but I've heard nothing. I have seen a few airplanes passing over, though, so I know there's still something going on out there. And I'm certainly not an instrument pilot, but I have worked on a lot of avionics and back in my military days, and I've tried every nav aid frequency on the map within 100 miles. Uh, but only one seems to be working that I can see from the ground here in Tuscaloosa, and that's the Vulcan VOR up near Birmingham, 114.4. and I can see it from the ground here in Tuscaloosa. So that's that gives me some encouragement that if I do ever get to fly, I can use that one maybe if its generator doesn't go down. But I want to learn to fly, and here's why. Around here, the roads, even the parking lots, are littered with cars that just stopped running when the flashes came. I've only seen a couple of ground vehicles moving at all since the flash. I talked with one backyard mechanic who had managed to get an old 1969 Ford F-100 pickup running, something with good old points and plugs and no computers, and uh, and it works. There's a few vehicles like that, but most everybody's is walking or riding bicycles, and there's starting to be highwaymen, pirate type gangs roaming around the countryside, playing Robin Hood, kidnapping and taking what they want rather than just working for it. Uh, so nobody wants to walk very far. And word of mouth news is telling us that there's a commune or compound or little town or something gathering in the Huntington area a few miles north of here. But that's a full day's walk if you're on foot through several miles of woods. And another rumor that's going around is that Birmingham supposedly has some sort of hospital back in limited service, and that could be very, very useful. Also, people are showing up here at the Tuscaloosa airport where I've made my home since the flashes. I now abide in that little office apartment complex there. And people are asking to be taken places, and there are no pilots. There's nobody else around. They want to go check on family or get home, maybe, wherever that is. One visitor, he was very belligerent. He even threatened to take one of my airplanes. And it was obvious that he had no idea how to fly the thing. But I pointed my large caliber hole maker, my 45 pistol at him, and he went away. But that's one of the reasons I guess I'm growing paranoid. There was another day where a Pilatus PC-12 landed, taxied around a little bit, and then left. Didn't talk to anybody, heard nothing on the radio. Life goes on. So that brings us up to today. I have been working on flying. I've been reading the books, taxiing around, going faster and faster. I even finally soloed a couple of days ago after all those years ago of flight instruction. Uh, I made it around the pattern for the long runway here at Tuscaloosa without crashing, and then I did it again yesterday, several times. I have plenty of fuel for the time being here at the airport, uh, and I really want to fly up to my home in Jasper and see what's left up that way. But I'm not going to walk 60 miles. So I'm building up my courage, and today I may try and fly this. It's one of Tideman's Cessnas. It's a nice 172. All of his airplanes have the Garmin uh, glass cockpits, G1000, or I think the TBM has the G3000, but I'm not going to touch that for a while. But I want to go to Jasper. And Tideman had mounted these little GoPro cameras on all the planes, so I'm going to try and record those flights uh, for posterity if anybody ever sees them, or maybe someday if they find me scattered across the ALTALA countryside, they can watch the videos and figure out why. And if I can fly reasonably safely, I could be a big help to a lot of the people that are still around. So we'll see. That was a little introduction to what's going on. So I just say stay tuned.